Okay, so the first thing here that my script is contractually obligating me to say is that this thing's sculpt is peak. I mean, just look at it! Look at it! It's just so beautiful in every way. Honestly, the best T-Rex figure on the market, easily. Not only is this thing perfectly proportioned to the fossil material, is also in possession of some wonderful scalation detail and just detail in general. It's just beautiful. Now let's not forget about those colors. You know how there's a lot of people out there who've been wanting figures of the old Walking with Dinosaur designs? I'm not even remotely one of those people, but I bought this guy anyways because he's the Kickstarter exclusive. And I will give David Silva credit. He has taken one of the worst designs in the entire show. Unfortunately, I can't say it is the worst design, and he has made it so much better by just simply improving the accuracy. Just shows how, I mean, making a good sculpt, it can do a lot as it turns out. I am now realizing that because this guy's Kickstarter exclusive, it's not like if you don't already own him, you can actually get this one. Maybe this wasn't the best idea, but I don't have the red one, so you're just gonna have to suck it. Now that we have that unnecessary preamble out of the way, let's answer the real question. Is it fun? Honestly, this is kind of a hard answer to question. Now, whether I would recommend this guy or not is really going to depend a lot on your own personal preferences. My personal preferences are that this guy is a mixed bag. What is that bag mixed with, you may be wondering? Well, lots of good stuff, like, you know, cake and ice cream, but also like allergens. Allow me to explain. Moving this guy around does give me massive dopamine hits. I mean, I'm just riding that dopamine train so hard. I mean, just look at him, he's so cool! The fact that it is legal for me to own a T-Rex figure that looks this good from so many angles honestly feels like something Congress would ban soon. So there you go, that's your cake. Where do the allergens come from? They come from that.
Why are we still here? Just to suffer?
Now, don't get me wrong. It is possible to get this thing to stand on its own with the articulated legs, which I will now demonstrate. There, that honestly didn't take anywhere near as long as I was expecting. That kind of dilutes my point to some degree. Oh no, wait, no! He fell over, see? My point is still validated. Okay, how about this? I'll try it again. There we go, I did it again, but you'll notice that I need to have his legs pretty directly under his body. And of course, if you use both standing legs, you're in the same boat. If you want to pull off something even remotely interesting, like a simple walking pose, it's just not capable of doing that on its own. Which, okay, reasonable, that's not that big of a deal. I'm really just bringing it up more for foreshadowing purposes here. But the fact that he cannot do this on his own is of course why he comes with a base in the first place. By simply detaching one of the articulated legs and putting on a standing leg, you are much more open in your posing capabilities with this guy. Now, as you can see, he is indeed remarkably stable like this. Only like an earthquake or a hurricane or something else could knock him over. And I'm too lazy right now to put anything on other than the flat feet, but the articulated legs do come with interchangeable feet, so that no matter what pose you have the foot in, it's good to go. And I mean, just look at this. You can even pull off a one-legged pose if you want to. I mean, that's pretty darn cool, ain't it? Not quite. Well, would you look at that? He warped with time. That honestly is my biggest disappointment with this figure. The fact that I cannot have one-legged displaying poses for an extended period of time. Well, I mean, I guess I could, but I don't think his feet appreciate that very much. Now this, of course, is still very useful for photography purposes, but if you want to do anything long-term, I mean, I'm sorry, but you're just fresh out of luck. Now, luckily, all of these issues can be solved very simply with the addition of a posing rod, which this figure doesn't have.
Why are we still here?
So, I had to buy my own. I did have to construct it myself like a common monkey, but you know what? I think it was worth it. However, because this thing is third party and it does not connect to the base in any way, I do find it very challenging to get this thing into a position where it will actually support the Rex's weight. I will now demonstrate that for you here. There we go, I've finally done it. The posing rod is now in a position where it is supporting the Rex's weight while also not moving itself. But as you can see, that took quite a while in order for me to get that set up. Now granted, this inefficiency might be in part because I bought one that has a smaller base, so it does not have quite as much support as one with a larger base might have. So because of this, I've actually taped the posing rod to the shelf quite a few times in order for it to not move when the Rex is putting its weight on it. So all in all, this works. It's very frustrating and you're still gonna get some warping, but it works. But it does put me in a situation where I often feel like I don't want to put him in one-legged poses that often because I don't want to have to deal with this whole posing rod situation. Which is why I was hoping that with increased size would come increased stability. I had a lot of hope for this Tyrannosaurus when it first came out. It's bigger, it's beefier, it's got thicker limbs, it's got an absolutely massive peg. Surely this thing must work much more effectively on one leg. And he can stand on one leg, as you can see, probably just as well as the T-Rex. Not only that, but as you can clearly see on mine, the foot does not actually make contact with the base. Now you might think this is just me being lazy. And you'd be wrong, because it's actually in alliance with the new study that shows that Tyrannosaurus can levitate. But because it was the toes that were warping on the T-Rex and the toes weren't touching the ground on this one, I was really hoping that that might mean that this one won't warp. So to test if this guy was indeed going to warp or not, I did the put it close to something and see if it ends up touching it later test. It's very, very efficient and good to see if your figure moves over time, and unfortunately this guy failed! There we go, I finally found a position that when I connected the tape on the base to the shelf, it's finally able to support this guy's weight. You see how this is a bit frustrating? Now I know I'm being a bit hard on these guys right now, and don't get me wrong, I do find the lack of posing rods on them very annoying, but at the same time I do not want to undersell just how much work has gone into getting these guys to do this at all. If you've experienced the Raptor series at all, you know it's a miracle that these things can even stand like this. The addition of the standing legs is something I particularly think was ingenious to getting large theropods to stand, and I do not think it should be removed from them in the future, even remotely. I just think that with the addition of a posing rod, not the substitution with a posing rod, but the addition of a posing rod is really what you need, and then I don't really know what else you could do to get a large bipedal figure to stand more effectively. We're gonna leave that in. I mean, after that, I think you just have to suck up and deal with the fact that you're dealing with a theropod, and there's only so much you can do. But I'm gonna be real with you guys. I do wish that I could own a foreshadowed theropod figure that stands well without a base. I can put in a cool pose without a base. I don't need to change out its legs, and it comes with a posing rod that already comes with it. So it attaches to the base and everything. I wish I could have something that had all of that, but I know that it will never exist.
Hello there.
Wait. What the fuck? Legends talk about how, long ago, before the age of man, there existed the perfect theropod figure. A figure that combined articulation, the ability to stand on its own, a posing rod, and not needing interchangeable legs. Unfortunately, scientists these days say that such a figure is impossible. It denies the laws of physics. But how can we be so sure? Reports have been coming in recently from late Jurassic China, of all places, about a figure that might just match my description. But there's only one way to find out the truth. After a long plane flight, I arrive in northwestern China 160 million years ago, not knowing exactly what I'll find. I just got done hearing some eyewitness reports from some of the local people in a village. Apparently they refer to the Guanlong as the articulated one, and it's really hard to find and even harder to catch. Now some people might criticize me being out here, saying it's a pointless endeavor. I'm searching for something that doesn't exist. But I'd like to remind you that they said the same thing about this guy. And look how that turned out. After finding what I believe is a suitable spot, I begin casting for the animal, hoping to catch it on the end of my line. But my attempts kept proving futile as I continued to catch bycatch on the end of my line. Here we go. It's just a Tyrannosaurus. But despite the number of Tyrannosaurus I continued to catch, I was determined not to give up. There are a lot of Tyrannosaurus here. I'll give this place that. We're out of time and place for them, I will say, but I guess you never know. just when I was about to give up hope, the line begins to run.
Okay, he's on. This does not feel like how you Tyrannosaurs felt. This guy, he's moving a lot more. Come on, baby. Come on, baby. Baby. Okay, this one's fighting real hard. I haven't come all the way to China for nothing. Come on, come on. It's okay. Here he is. Here he comes. Oh my gosh. God, look at that. Now that is an articulated one, if I've ever seen it. A Guanlong. They said it didn't exist. Oh my gosh, guys. After all that work, I finally got one. This might be one of the most satisfying catches of my life. I've come all the way out here searching for something that no one thought existed. Oh, don't bite me, dude. Don't bite me. It's okay. I'm not gonna hurt you. We just showed all those scientists. Checkmate, atheists. Now, those of you who have been following my show for quite some time now know that normally I am a big advocate of catch and release, but this one is so important to me that I think I'm going to take this one home. So let's get on a plane back to the US and I'll review this guy for you.
Oh my gosh, this thing is amazing. His articulation is so good. I mean, just look at all of this. You can have his head up high with his head cocked, or you could have him down low like he's trying to stalk something. I mean, he looks so cool. I can get him into some really cool poses just like the Rex, but unfortunately, there's no way he's going to be able to stand in a striding pose like this. Oh god, what the fuck? Surely adjusting his weight in some way, such as tilting the tail up, is going to totally make him not able to stand. Oh my, this thing's ability to stand truly blows me away. Probably because he's so small and lightweight, but I can put him into some really cool poses and expect him to be able to stand really easily. I mean, not every time, right? But look at, I can just do a little bit of adjustment and bam, I can get him to stand just like that. Or, you know, we can just adjust the legs a little bit, move him a little like this, you know, shoot that leg forward just a tad, you know, bend that ankle a little bit, bend the ankle on the back leg a little bit, right? So he's in a nice little different striding pose, adjust the toes, and bam, look at that, he can stand once again. But just to really sell the point, let's do it a third time. Okay, let's try to get him haunched down, kind of like he's stalking something. His tail's gonna drop. Actually, you know what if I switch the legs real quick, which is super easy to do because he doesn't have alternative legs. Okay, I might be biting off a little more than I can chew here. He cannot deny the laws of physics after all. But you know, I think I have demonstrated that it does stand remarkably well. Now, I will say he's not super stable like this, so I wouldn't necessarily leave him or display him like this for an extended period of time, but that's what this is for. He comes with a posing rod. Look at that. I can just like plop him down real quick and then bam, look, he works. Did you see just how easy that was? I hope you were taking notes. You're going to be getting a D- in school at this rate, buddy. Not only does he stand really effectively, but he's also really lightweight, which honestly makes him very fun to play with. He's not a workout. This one is really competing for my favorite. I will say if I just have to go off of sculpt and visuals alone, then my favorite is easily
Tyrannosaurus freaking Rex!
But when I throw in all the cumulative factors, this Guanlong honestly might be my favorite of the three. Just simply because he is so much fun to play with. Oh yeah, I've been showing off the articulation on the Guanlong. Should probably show off the articulation on the other guys too, shouldn't I? Now this video has already gone on long enough, and I think the articulation is pretty standard for the most part for a BOTM figure, so I'm just going to point out a couple things here. The first thing I want to point out is that the hip joint does not have a ton of range of movement, especially not in the backwards direction. Now this of course is an adaptation so that the figure can stand better on two legs. And though at first you'd think it'd be kinda limiting, in my opinion I don't really think it is. The knee joint can get the leg pretty far back, so I haven't really felt limited by the hip joint at all, but I still felt I should point it out. The only other really noteworthy thing to talk about here is the hood. So the larger Tyrannosaur figures feature a double ball joint between the head and the body with a neck sleeve that's in between the two. So the neck piece is not actually attached to the rest of the figure. Now I do think that this limits the head articulation a little bit, at least in comparison to the Ceratopsian figures. But I still think it works pretty well for the most part. I don't find it that annoying. The only unfortunate thing with it is if you want to put the head in an upward direction, you get this weird unalignment. This of course is why I call the neck piece the hood, because it kind of looks like he's wearing a hoodie. He's just going through his emo phase, okay? But speaking of the hood, I gotta talk about the Tyrannosaurus. So you'll notice on the top of mine's head there's this white paint. What's that up with? Well, the reason why is because when I got this Tyrannosaurus, the top of the hood and the back of the head were actually connected to each other. They were attached. Now, I've had it before with BOTM figures where clearly the thing was put together before the paint was fully dry, and so the paint kind of like holds the pieces together, and so you gotta break that connection in order to get the articulation to work. So I was assuming that was the case here, because I thought the whole point of the hood was to have it be loose. So this led me to be so convinced that this was a bug and not a feature that I forcefully broke it off. And that led me to be greeted by this peg in the back of the head, which happens to fit right into a similar sized hole in the back of the hood, meaning that this attachment was purposeful. It was not a bug, it was indeed a feature. And I don't know, that just seems like a weird decision to me. Like, I don't really fully understand why it was like that. But at the same time, I don't really care too much about the fact that I broke it. The white paint on the top of the head isn't really that distracting to me for whatever reason, probably because it's similar to the natural color. And the head articulation is ever so slightly improved because it's not attached to it anymore. It of course does not look natural at all if you point the head in the downward direction, but you couldn't do that anyways when the hood was attached. So I don't really mind the fact that I accidentally broke it. I'm not necessarily advocating for it, but I'm letting you know that this could be an option. Oh, and I should also note that the hip articulation is even more limited on the Tyrannosaurus. It doesn't move that far forward or backwards. But that is not at all an issue with this one.
Bruh.
So, all in all, are they worth it? Are they worthy? It's really going to depend on the kind of person you are. If you just want a nice display piece, you don't really want to play around with it that much, I think these things are amazing. They look great, they're super well painted, super well made, get them. But if you really love an action figure that you can play around with a lot, whether or not this thing is going to be worth it for you is really going to depend on how much you feel about some of the articulation and posing issues. I will say, for me at least, I really enjoy these guys. That said, I'm not going to get a lot of the big ones. I'm planning on getting the Drypto and maybe the Albert, and that's really it. Because though they look cool, and I really love displaying them because they look cool, they're not necessarily super fun. So am I going to end up buying a bunch of the small ones after my huge rant about the Guanlong? Probably not. I gotta be real, I'm not a big fan of the rest of them. But I'm definitely going to be paying attention to more of the small theropods that BOTM makes in the future. That is for sure. Hope you guys have a great day and don't get hit by a milk truck. See ya.